that ever happened in the history of life, besides, life itself, all went down inside one tiny cell. This isn't just some dusty ancient story. This is your origin story. We're about to unpack the moment that made every complex creature on Earth, from a mushroom all the way to you, even possible.
So let's just jump right in with a huge question. When you look back across 4 billion years of evolution, what was the single biggest, most game-changing leap that life ever took? Was it crawling out of the water? Learning to fly? No. The real answer is something way, way smaller, and honestly a lot weirder.
The scale of this thing is just massive. A microbiologist named Roger Stanier put it perfectly back in the 60s. He called it the greatest single evolutionary discontinuity we can see today. And he wasn't exaggerating. He was talking about this almost unbelievable gap between two very different ways of being alive.
Okay, so let's set the stage. On either side of this massive divide, we've got our two main characters. You have the simple cells, the prokaryotes, and the complex ones, the eukaryotes. And the difference between them? It's not just a little step, it is a biological Grand Canyon.
So on one side, you've got prokaryotes. Just think bacteria. They're the minimalists of the world. They're small, they're simple, their DNA just kind of floats around inside. But on the other side, you've got eukaryotes, and that's us. Our cells are like these huge, bustling cities. They can be 100 times bigger. They've got a central library to keep the DNA safe, the nucleus, and all these specialized little factories, the organelles, doing their jobs. So the puzzle that has kept scientists up at night for decades is, how on earth did life get from A to B?
And this is where the mystery really deepens. Check out this timeline. For 2 billion years, that's nearly half the entire of life on this planet, things were stuck on simple mode. The world was full of these basic prokaryotic cells, and that was it. Nothing more complex ever evolved. This tells you that the jump to complexity was not easy. It wasn't inevitable. It took a revolution.
And that brings us to our first huge clue in this whole investigation, this smoking gun, if you will. It's a tiny little machine humming away inside every single one of your cells right now. It's called the mitochondrion. It's the power plant.
Now, the theory that explains this is called endosymbiosis, and it is a wild ride. It suggests that way back when, one cell swallowed another cell, but instead of digesting it, they decided to team up. It wasn't a hostile takeover, it was more like a corporate merger that ended up completely changing the future of the entire planet.
Just look at this tree of life. Every complex living thing you can possibly imagine, a mushroom, a frog, you, me, all of it branches out from one single point deep in the past. And that red dot right there, that's it. That's the moment of the merger. It is the birth of our common ancestor. Without that one event, this tree would just be one lonely branch.
Okay, but figuring that out just leads to an even tougher question. A real classic chicken or egg problem. So what came first? Did you need a complex cell that was already capable of swallowing another one, or did you need that tiny new power plant guest to provide the energy that made all that complexity possible in the first place? This has been one of the fiercest debates in all of evolutionary biology.
So you've got two camps. On one side, there's the Mido-early team. They say the merger was the spark. A super simple cell got this amazing new battery pack, and that's what gave it the juice to evolve all its other fancy features. But the Middle-late team, they see it the other way. They think the host cell was already pretty sophisticated to begin with, and getting the mitochondrion was just the final killer upgrade to an already awesome machine.
So which is it? Was this merger the spark that lit the fire of complexity, or was it just the final piece of a puzzle that was already mostly built? To figure this out, scientists had to go from being biologists to being detectives. And the crime scene? Well, it's inside you. It's in your DNA.
And this leads us to the genetic evidence. See, our DNA is basically a history book of our evolution. But when scientists really started to read that book, they found that the story wasn't a simple tale of two cells. It was way, way messier and a lot more interesting.
Right, because when you actually look at the genes inside our cells, it's not a clean 50-50 split from one host and one guest. It's a mosaic. It's like a patchwork quilt of DNA stitched together from all kinds of different ancient sources. And that discovery, well, it threw a huge wrench in the whole investigation.
And get this, when scientists did a full genetic audit, they found this totally bizarre ratio. For every one gene that looks like it came from our supposed host cell, an archaeon, we have about 3 genes that look like they came from various bacteria. That is not a 50-50 partnership. That looks more like a party that got way out of hand. And here is the real bombshell. Don't even worry about trying to read all the names here. Just look at the colors. If the story was simple, one host, one guest, you'd expect to see two main colors, right? But instead, our genome looks like a library that's collected books from all over the microbial world. We've got bits and pieces from all these different ancient life forms. Our family tree isn't a straight line. It's a tangled web.
So with a genetic crime scene this messy, how do you solve the chicken or egg problem? Well, the answer comes from brand new, really powerful ways of analyzing our DNA that can finally sort through all this chaos and find a clear signal in the noise.
What these researchers could do is pretty amazing. It's like building thousands of individual family trees, one for each of our ancient genes. And by comparing the histories of all these different genes, they could finally start to piece together a timeline of what happened, and in what order.
And the verdict is in. The genetic data is pretty clear. The mitochondria late hypothesis wins. The evidence strongly suggests that the host cell that took in our ancestors' power plant was no simpleton. It was already a pretty sophisticated machine. It was already on the path to becoming complex. So the merger wasn't the spark that started the engine. It was more like strapping a jet engine onto a car that was already flying down the racetrack. But you know how it is. You solve one mystery and it just opens up an even bigger one. If getting the jet engine was just an upgrade, then what was building the race car in the first place? What force was pushing this one lineage of simple cells towards complexity long before it got its massive power burst? Turns out, the biggest leap in the history of life still has some of its best secrets to tell.